everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload a whole bunch of different types of videos on this channel, mainly surrounding true crime and psychological cases, as well as a little bit of fashion and lifestyle sprinkled in where I can. So for today's video, we're back discussing an unsolved Jane Doe case, and this one is known as the case of Valentine Sally. So if you want to hear a little bit about the case, then keep on watching and we shall just get started. I've literally just sat down to film and I've only just noticed how much floral is going on with me in the background, so I apologise if that's a little bit distracting. So this Jane Doe case takes place on Valentine's Day in the year of 1982, which kind of provides you a little bit of an insight into the name that this case was given, why it was given this name. A set of female human remains were discovered outside of Williams, Arizona, by the westbound roadside of the Interstate 40 by a public safety officer who was carrying out just a routine check of the area. The remains had been found lying face down and underneath a large cedar tree. Professionals had carried out a closer inspection of the remains. They discovered that she was wearing a pair of denim jeans, however a number of the belt loops around the waist of the jeans had actually been broken. This had immediately struck investigators as quite a strange occurrence and likely an important finding, and they ultimately decided that the most likely possibility of an explanation as to why these belt loops were broken was that someone had used the belt loops on her jeans to hold her up and throw her down onto the floor after she'd already died. There had been no signs of sexual assault when they carried out an examination, but the autopsy determined that her cause of death had been a homicide. It had appeared as though the woman had either been strangled or suffocated, and that she'd only been deceased for around 10 days prior to her discovery. Her age had been placed at being somewhere between 15 and 24 years of age, and she was believed to have stood at around 5 foot 5 inches tall. An examination of her teeth informed investigators that in the months prior to her death, she'd had a partial root canal operation, meaning that the specific tooth had been drilled into in preparation for the upcoming full root canal operation. And this is a fact that would later become particularly relevant. Her identity had remained unknown since the discovery of the remains, and they had been in a pretty advanced state of decomposition when they had been discovered, and so the help of professional forensic sketch artists was enlisted, and a sketch of her believed appearance was released publicly in order to kind of prompt anyone perhaps recognising her and be able to provide an identity or an understanding of what happened to the young girl. She was believed to have been a beautiful young woman who had long blonde hair and blue eyes. At the time of her death, she had been wearing a red and white striped jumper and a pair of jeans with the branding Season. She hadn't been wearing any shoes or jewellery when she was discovered, although she did have her ears pierced, and the only belonging found on her was a white handkerchief found in the pocket of her jeans. A woman's bra in the size 36C was also located nearby to where the remains were found, and this was believed to have likely belonged to the victim, although they could never really be fully sure. So very soon, the location of death and the sketch of her believed appearance was released in a number of different media outlets and newspapers around the local area, just in an attempt to sift out any potential sightings or identifications of this young Jane Doe. Very soon after the public appeal for information, a woman had come forward with a sighting that was potentially vital in kind of aiding the understanding of who she was and what had happened to her. So this woman had been working as a waitress in a truck stop diner in Ashfork, Arizona, and she claimed to have seen this young girl who looked a lot like the forensic sketch of the Jane Doe victim around the time of the 4th of February that same year. At around 4 a.m, the diner she'd been working in was quiet, but a young girl had entered. She'd placed her at being around 16 to 17 years old. But she hadn't entered alone. She'd entered with 2 men, according to some sources. One man was Caucasian and believed to have been in his 60s. This man was around 5 foot 9 inches tall, and his outfit has stood out as being particularly prominent, as he'd been wearing a very large cowboy hat that had been decorated in peacock feathers. This waitress said that she'd believed that this man had been the girl's father, just because of the behaviours they were showing towards each other and the way that the pair kind of just interacted, while the other man, who she'd only described as being an adult African-American male, did not interact with the young girl at all while she was around sort of the table. The waitress had heard the young girl say that she was suffering from quite severe tooth pain, and she'd actually mentioned that she'd had a root canal operation when she'd asked the waitress for a glass of water and some painkillers. The older white male had apparently appeared quite concerned for the girl and the pain that she was experiencing, and was being particularly attentive towards her, and because of this apparent genuine concern that he seemed to be displaying towards the young girl, this is kind of the main reason why this woman had presumed that that the pair were father and daughter. So this witness's claim of seeing this young girl who was suffering from tooth pain would link with the findings of the autopsy on Valentine Sally Jane Doe, due to the evidence of a partial root canal operation having been carried out not long before her death. In addition to this, the age would have matched the victim, and also the timing of this sighting would have been accurate in relation to the length of time it was approximated that the victim had been deceased for prior to discovery. This particular witness had emphasised the fact that this young girl was so hard to miss since she was extremely pretty, so much so that she had referred to her as someone who would turn heads. Another potential sighting of Valentine Sally had been 2 days before this one, on February the 2nd. A student from the Northern Arizona University had been driving north when he was approaching Cordes Junction, and he'd spotted a young woman who appeared to match the facial composite of Valentine Sally attempting to hitchhike along the road. He'd pulled over to offer the young girl a lift, and she told him that she was travelling from Phoenix, where she lived with a few friends, and she even had a part-time job. She told him that family issues had brought her on her travels and that she was trying to get to Flagstaff in Arizona, where she was planning on hitchhiking with a truck driver travelling the East Coast so that she could get to her final intended location, which was New Jersey. Whether these two sightings are of the same woman is unknown, but some people have suggested the possibility of the two men that this young girl was seen with in the diner could have been truck drivers who had been offering her a lift along their journey. Not much came about despite both of these claims being investigated quite thoroughly, but then in the year of 1984, a significant change in the case occurred. It was announced to the public that the Valentine Sally Jane Doe was formally identified as Melody Cutlip. Melody Eugene Cutlip was a runaway from Florida who was reported missing in the year of 1980, and investigators had believed that the pair looked extremely alike. When this potential connection was made, the dental records of the Jane Doe were compared with that of Melody Cutlip and were allegedly found to be a match. However, it's now believed that the individual who had been responsible for carrying out this examination had used unofficial and unusual methods that had never been scientifically proven as being accurate. This individual had allegedly done so on a number of other occasions, and as a result had a previous record of supporting false identifications due to his chosen method of practice. Melody Cutlip's mother allegedly was informed of the identification, but she herself did not believe that the remains were that of her daughter, and therefore she had refused to have the remains transported to her for a burial. The witness who had provided the sighting of the young girl at the truck stop diner, so the waitress, she'd heard of this incident with Melody Cutlip's mother, and she chose to pay for the remains to be buried herself with her own money, and Valentine Sally Jane Doe was buried under the headstone that read Melody Cutlip, Valentine Sally. However, Melody Cutlip's mother's instincts would be proven correct just 2 years later, when in 1986 Melody arrived on her mother's doorstep alive and well. Melody Cutlip herself died sadly in 1998 as a result of an unfortunate car accident, but the remains of Valentine Sally remain buried under the incorrect name despite Melody's family's request to have it removed due to this misidentification. And Valentine Sally remains buried in a cemetery in Williams in Arizona to this day. Her DNA remains available to be matched in the future if any potential identification comes about. However, sadly, no relatives of a missing young girl matching her exact description have come forward, and she remains unidentified almost 4 decades later. The main question I think people have relating to this case is just simply that it just seems so awful that this beautiful young woman has not, to anyone's knowledge, even been reported as a missing person. She lost her life without anyone seemingly having been searching for her, and I think that's absolutely heartbreaking. And I sincerely hope that one day she can be formally identified and can be buried under her own name. So that's everything I'm going to discuss today regarding the case of Valentine Sally. As always, feel free to let me know your thoughts down below, as well as if you have any other case requests that you want me to cover, feel free. Don't forget to check out all of my social medias, they'll be on the screen, and all the information in the description box as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, I hope you found this interesting, and I will see you guys very soon for another video. Thanks for watching, bye.